Now we're taking the conversation to the heat wave. I know that especially in Abuja, I don't know about some other parts of the country, it's been really hot, and it's been the consequence of the global warming. How can Nigeria do better in terms of this heat wave? What is global warming? How are we coping? What can we do to ensure there is not this rapid environmental awareness that we need to get to everybody? How can we ensure people understand global warming and reduce the emission that would stop this rapid flow into what we have come to term as global warming? In the studio to discuss that is Pius Oko. He's the Executive Secretary, Lift Humanity Foundation. He will be giving us all the information necessary to know about heat wave and global warming. Thank you so much for being part of the program.
It's a pleasure.
Good morning, Mr. Pius, and welcome to ASO Morning.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure being in the studio.
Exactly.
It's wonderful.
Good. So Joy has given a beautiful introduction of what we're talking about: global warming, heat wave, global warming, heat wave. For the average Nigerian like us, like me, what is global warming? What is heat wave? How are they interrelated? Because when you say heat wave, all I know is that the weather is extremely hot, and then there's something wrong. It's not supposed to be hot like that.
Exactly.
This period, the rain should be falling, the weather should be cooler, but it's hot. Then the second, we're reading about global warming. It's part of the things that we're doing to the global environment that is causing this heat wave. So you are the one who's an expert. Explain to us how, global warming and heat, how do you call it, the relationship between heat wave and global warming.
Thank you. Once again, it's a pleasure being in the studio, and I work with an organization called Lift Humanity Foundation, and what we try to do is to promote proper development and also add our voice to the advocacy as it relates to climate change and sustainable development. Now, the genesis of the heat wave is this. The radiation in form of light waves passes through the atmosphere and comes to the earth. And this is a natural process which is supposed to warm the earth, right?
Okay.
And after this, a heat or energy radiates back into the space. Now, when it radiates back, it passes also through the atmosphere. Now, the carbon dioxide, which form part of the atmosphere, kind of trap some of this heat. And when it traps the heat, but as a result of our consistent adding to that carbon, which is through our emission processes, as a result of we generating energy, it accumulates more of the unnecessary carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is part of the greenhouse gases. And so more heat are now being trapped.
Okay.
And so when the more heat are being trapped, because as a result of radiation, because like I earlier mentioned, the sun, which is the radiation that comes in as a light wave, but return back, radiated back in form of heat. And then this heat is being trapped, which is a normal circumstance to warm the earth.
Okay.
Yeah. But when it's now in excess,
Which is
as a result of, yes, which is what it is now, as a result of our actions or human activities, where we burn coal, we burn fossil fuels, oil, as a result of us wanting to have energy to ourselves. Now this produces a lot of the greenhouse gases, and those greenhouse gases accumulate in the atmosphere, and when this accumulate, it prevents the normal circumstance of heat returning back to the space, or energy returning back to the space, and then it brings about the accumulation of heat or the sun, as the case may be, and that now comes back to the earth in form of heat. And that is the genesis of the heat wave or the genesis of climate change. So the more we continue with our human processes of adding to the atmosphere in terms of the greenhouse gas emission, then the more we get this heat wave. So over years, these are sequences. So over years, this happens. And when this happens, in the number of 10, 20, 3 decades, then it changes the weather pattern or the condition. And that is what is climate change, and that is what increases the temperature of the earth, and then leads to heat waves that we are resulting or we are facing currently.
We're the problem. We're our problem.
Yeah.
We're the ones causing this heat. That's what you're saying.
Yes, I think scientific evidences are clear that majority of what causes climate change or the heat wave is human cause, and that is a result of our activities.
Okay,
because we are
what
now.
would be the most effective way now to mitigate strategies to combat this global warming? If we are the cause, we know that we're the ones, and like you said, it gets trapped there for a decade, 2 decades, 3 and then after that, of course, the environment must turn around because we've stored everything that should have dissipated. It has to come back to the earth.
Yeah.
What can we do to, most effectively mitigate it? We that cause these problems.
Okay, I think the first thing I will say is that let's look at the impact for us to know how grievous or how dangerous this is for us. And one of it will be the issue of human health. As a result of this heat or temperature rise, we are now resulting into several respiratory diseases, issues of the common asthma that we face, dehydration, which is dangerous to human health, and so many others. If you get to the issues of agriculture, currently we're having drought. If you could maybe have a space to maybe scan the north part of Nigeria, you will notice a lot of droughts where farmers are now suffering the consequences of them having low yield from their crops and animal production. That is also an issue. The shrinking of rivers and lakes is also another cause as a result of the rise in temperature. So when you get to, for example, the Lake Chad currently, from 1970 to date, we have over 70% of the Chad being shrink. And about 70 million people depend on that for their source of water and livelihood. So now you should know the consequences of this. That is not all. Water scarcity is also another issue that is as a result of this heat rise. So you could see even headers moving across board because they want to have that means of water to feed maybe their animals or for themselves as well. And this clashes into community conflicts that we're currently even facing across board, maybe the middle belt down to the south. This is as a result of also heat waves. Some others could be also biodiversity loss. Some of our wildlife and ecosystem depletion is also another cause. Scientists have reported that in the 2050 we will be having a shortfall of 50% of our wildlife being extinct. So that is also dangerous for us. Heat wave also results into diseases, like I spoke in terms of human health. Most of our mosquitoes, for example, breed more during the heat period or during the heat rise.
I thought that mosquitoes breed more when the place, I know they say swampy waters and have water around, stagnant waters.
No, I think that is where we kind of get it wrong. Actually, it's also a possibility, but the truth is it has shown that in a warmer condition, some vector viruses or vector carriers, like the mosquitoes, the Zika virus, for example, breed more during the heat period. And that is why even in temperate regions like in Europe, you find less of the mosquitoes breeding because of the cold temperature limits them, kind of. But if it gets back to Africa or where we have kind of a surge in terms of rise in temperature, then this breeds more, and then it had to combine to our problems of health challenges. We know the consequences of malaria for us, even as Africans or as Nigerians. So those are the issues. So we should see it from that perspective, that this is a dangerous trend for us if we continue from with that. And back to your question on issues or how we could mitigate this situation. One of it is to find a way of reducing our emission levels. If you follow the United Nations trend, especially the conversation at the Conference of Parties of the UNFCCC, you will discover that the number one mandate is for us to reduce our temperature rise. That is the number one mandate of the Paris Agreement. And what it's telling us is that we must make sure that we practice a more greener energy sources, because the ones we've been used to, or the ones we've been practicing as human to generate energy for ourselves, is now haunting us or haunting back to us. Because when we also make sure we add to the carbon, or produce more of the greenhouse gases as a result of our industrial activities, as a result of our transport system, as a result of even heating our homes, or even the common woman in the village or in the rural communities cooking. The more we continue with this, that temperature rise also affects even the melting of the ice of the ocean, leading to the ocean rise, or the rise and you could see the consequences that we had even last year, where with the flood, where we had about 600 plus lives, aside thousands of hectares of land lost. Now it's leading to also food insecurity. So we must reduce that emission level. We must go more into greener.
But is it possible? Especially when you take into cognizance people that live in the rural area. How would you tell them not to cook with firewood? You can't give them gas. Yeah, kerosene is almost some, kerosene is actually luxury now.
Exactly. Well, I also wanted to just go to the government. Are we having intentional policies that discourage deforestation? Because, like she said, it's very important for they can't afford gas cylinders and refilling gas, so they resolve to that, and they still sell kerosene. If they don't want these locals to have to use the charcoal, they should make gas easier to access and cheaper. We have also in this program established that we have stupendous amount of gas in Nigeria. So why are we not leveraging on that and harnessing it for the common man? But what would you say in terms of government's intentional effort to say, let's stop deforestation, or all the indices you just mentioned, all these indices you mentioned, intentional efforts to see that we reduce the global warming effect?
Yes, I think it starts from government, but it's a collaborative effort, actually. Okay. For the government, we are aware, and we're also pushing with a lot of advocacy on what we call energy access. I think that's one of our core projects that we are handling with the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, based in Nairobi, called the African Coalition for Sustainable Energy Access. And on that, we're following with government policies. One of it is what was launched last year, which is the ETP, the Nigeria Energy Transition Plan. It's also one of those policies that is on ground to see how we could transit from our common fossil use, and then try to make more cheaper, accessible, and also democratize energy system in Nigeria. Because we need to also decentralize the energy system in Nigeria, so that we will allow for those in the rural community to have access, especially to the renewable energy that we preach, and that we also, the issue of clean cooking stove is also another advocacy that we are adding to the voice of those in the rural community. Because we feel when they have clean stoves, for example, for cooking, that will limit them or take them off the issues of going to maybe needing firewood or charcoal. Because there are a lot of health consequences to this. Exactly. You could see women having eyes, because the problem is that the women who are mothers and also the caregivers are the ones suffering the most with this consequence, because they're the ones that are cooking the rural homes for us and so on. So they're the ones that this smokes, for example, from the firewood or the charcoal gets sunk into, and affects their eyes and some other health challenges. So we are saying that clean cooking is an advantage.
We have so much to discuss. I mean, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I really wanted you to talk about the government's energy transition plan. there was a timeline for it, but unfortunately we don't have as much time.
Okay.
But we'll definitely invite
you
you
to bring
to-
you
yes,
back
we have
because
to
there's
bring
so
you
much
back.
to discuss around it. But Pius Oko, thank you so much for being part of the program.
It's a pleasure and almost welcome. Thank you.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
we've been talking with Pius Oko, Executive Secretary, Lift Humanity Foundation, who is trying to tell us how we can mitigate through the heat wave and global warming. And of course, everybody's responsible, so we have to take this role seriously and then work collectively to ensure that, you know, the environment is safer for each one of us. And that's how we wrap up ASOL morning today, Wednesday, and looking forward to being with you tomorrow morning. But of course, we must say thank you for being part of the program. My name is Ifunanya Amafili.
And I am Joy Asanye. Do have a wonderful Wednesday.